You know, it makes it, you know, there are more people who do not live here. It became a way much bigger community than we ever had before.
Okay, so I don't mean to cut you off, but we are now live streaming, so we kind of.
Okay.
Eva, I just got to tell you,
Join in.
Eva, we did the same. I mean, Katrina, we did the same thing. We had 59 connections, so it was like 59 owners plus our board on Zoom, and it was the most well-attended meeting of any meeting I've been in since I've lived here.
See, you see, there are always two sides of a story.
No, I wasn't. I was advocating the video conferencing meetings. I just was simply suggesting that we have to remember that we're live streaming.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Hi, can you guys hear me? This is Nev.
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah, I'm trying to, let's see here. I thought I joined with video. Let me see here.
Check your camera setting. It might be you might check your camera setting. It might be off.
Yeah, I'm looking. Okay, let's see here. I am not sure why this isn't, I don't really know where to look.
I'm going to grab it. I'll be right back.
Let me see.
You want a computer, Niraj? If you want a computer, lower left corner, probably. You got the Zoom installed.
Let's see, so trying to test microphone, switch to.
Hi, Ellen.
I haven't had this problem before. Let me see here. Let's see if this one works. Sorry, I'm gonna try to put my other computer on. I just don't, it should be just a setting, but I'm not seeing any setting.
You might want to just check the lower left corner of your screen and move the mouse down to it. It usually is a stop video button there.
Yeah, I see stop video, but
Well, you should have video now unless you turned it off somewhere else in your system.
let's see.
Here we go. Oh no, that is Diane.
Janelle, as a matter of fact, in a conference room.
Video settings. Let's see, video. Open camera. Enable. Huh, I don't know why it's not. Sorry to hold things up, guys.
Nervosita, are you ready?
I'm
You-
almost, I'm just trying to,
you?
I'm logging in a different way. Sorry. It's not, for some reason on my laptop, it's not. And it says it says enable HD, like as though the camera's already working, but it's not working, obviously. Just give me just a couple more minutes. Let me just. Okay, guys. I don't know what's going on. It's weird. What should I do?
We can hear you. I mean, if you want to start the meeting, we can't see you, but we can hear.
Yeah. I just don't know. I don't get it.
Is
Okay.
it an Apple or a PC?
It's
And
a
we're-
MacBook Air is what I was trying to get
Oh,
on.
man, you had a look then.
It's funny because I've had other Zoom meetings with this computer and I just don't understand why. Actually, I'm sorry.
We're actually live, so.
Okay. All right, well, let's, if I can, should I go ahead and start then? And if I
Yes,
can
ma'am,
figure
it's
it out-
9:35.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to the virtual Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board regular meeting on Wednesday, July 1st, 2020 at 9:30 a.m. Kindly silence your cell phones. Also, if you would like to speak, we'll take turns by raising hands. And town clerk, please call the roll.
Member Amerlin Stern. Member Parks.
Here.
Member Tertan. Member Matherman. I see her on, but she's not answering. Member Hoffman.
Here.
Member Braun.
Here.
And Chairperson Mirage.
Here.
So let's see, 2, 3, 4. We have just enough for a quorum. Okay. And we have our town planner, Alan is present also.
Yes, I'm here.
How, Ellen?
Hello.
Hi. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of
States
Of
America.
America and to the republic which it stands under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
Make a motion.
Second the motion.
All in favor, say yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Okay. We're going to move on to public comments. Public comments is now open. This is the designated time for the public to speak. Each speaker will allow 3 minutes to speak. All comments will be directed to the board as the body through the presiding officer. The town clerk, is there any comment from the public?
We did not receive any written comments from the public, no one pre-registered. So therefore we have no public comments today.
Okay.
Okay, for the record, Member Matherman is joining us at 9:38.
Okay, she's just called my cell phone, but I was unable to answer.
She has no audio.
She's muted.
Oh, she doesn't have audio and I don't have video. Okay. There are no presentations.
Oh, no presentations, but sorry to interrupt you. For the record, I do now see Member Amerlin Stern joining the meeting at 9:39.
Very hard to get through.
Okay.
Okay. And let's see here. Are there any corrections to the minutes of January 8th, 2020? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Move to accept the minutes.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Okay. Unfinished business. The discussion on recycling and conservation, Member Halpern, you weren't present the last meeting, so we weren't able to comment on it, but I'll if you would like to start.
Yes, I'd be happy to, Ms. Chairman. I brought this up an eon ago because I thought we weren't really doing recycling in the town, and I thought it was something we needed to push. So I actually got numbers from Marshall, our town manager, yesterday. Actually put in a call to Waste Management, which I didn't get back, but I found the information I needed as well. And I think there's some really interesting numbers, and I think I can share this briefly with the group. The only national numbers I could get is through the EPA Office of Solid Waste. And interestingly enough, the last time they stopped doing this in 2017, a lot of the EPA programs have been demolished. Just leave it at that. In the 2017 national numbers, out of 267 million tons of municipal solid waste, about 25% was recycled, about 10% was composted. So if we look at our numbers comparison, that's at 25%, as I said, is recycled. We don't do composting here in the town. If we look at 2019 for the town of Highland Beach, we had a total of 1,472 tons of municipal solid waste was collected. In town, remember, they collect the garbage and the recycling separately. And the recycling, they collected 440 tons. i.e. 23% of our total municipal solid waste stream was recycled, just a little bit under the national average for 2017. So not too bad. We take a look at the first 5 months of 2020, it gets more interesting. And by the way, when you look at 2019, a high month where the most garbage, as you would expect, was January, the low month, of course. Half of that, about 50% of the municipal solid waste, was in August. When we take a look at the first 5 months of this year, we see the effect of COVID-19. Our recycling went up almost to 29%, over 25% increase in recycling. I would accredit that to people being home and having more time to separate their waste or whatever. So we're moving on very nicely at almost 29% recycling for this year. So I have nothing to add on that in terms of any recommendations in terms of recycling or solid waste for the town. Any questions?
The average was Florida or Palm Beach County or nationally?
2017 was nationally.
Okay.
It was nationally.
I mean, it's
Go ahead.
needless to say that 25 is not enough. So being better than 25 is always good.
Yeah, understand.
You know,
Understand.
I mean, it's okay. It's a culture, and we can talk until the cows are coming home about that. These are personal preferences, what people use in their personal life on plastic or styrofoam whatsoever. So yeah,
But that's a different subject in terms of what they use. Doesn't affect the numbers in terms of recycling. If they
yeah, but there are
reuse these plastic containers or whatever, that doesn't show up in the recycling stream. It does show up in
yeah.
less municipal solid waste.
I understand. So, but it is a matter of how we live and what we can recycle.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think Stephen wanted to say something.
Yeah, in your development of information on this, has there been any move to recycle styrofoam?
Are they moving to recycle styrofoam? I
Well,
don't know. Say again, please.
No, it's my understanding from Waste Management from years ago when I thought of going to their services, that they segregate styrofoam, where they don't recycle styrofoam in our county. As a matter of
No.
fact, I don't think it's recycled anywhere in the United States effectively. I was wondering if you saw any a change in that, or is there any move toward recycling it? Because one of the problems we're having is a lot of people still use those containers, and they have no place to put them because they're actually not allowed to put them into the blue containers legitimately. And if they do, I'm sure Waste Management just throws them into the regular garbage stream.
Well, I don't know enough to tell you. I do have a call into the senior person for Palm Beach County for Waste Management. If I ever get a call back from her, I'll ask her about it and get back to you.
In regards to Members Brown's comments, it's not about a cultural situation. It's about how much effort people want to make to recycle. Personally, my building, we make a significant effort to set aside whatever we can. But it's also my understanding that the situation is now becoming more difficult because Waste Management is telling us that they will not be able to recycle certain paper products that effectively are soiled with food products on them and things of that nature, because no one's buying anymore. We used to, believe it or not, have the ability to sell a significant amount of our soiled waste products to China, and China has said no more. So they're piling up basically at facilities around the country, and no one's recycling them. So it's really a situation where I don't believe people would not make the extra effort if they knew they were actually going to get the result. But unfortunately, the problem is going to be one where we don't have the backup resources to manage the actual waste, at least so far.
I hear you. What I meant is, for example, it is a matter of a personal choice. If you go shopping with your own bags instead of coming home with plastic, that means in that moment I have less to recycle. So you know, I would like to start on the base, not even creating things that need to be recycled. That is, I think, the best approach to that. But that is a personal choice, and this is how you are used to do things, or how you did it your whole life. So that is what I meant with the cultural, or with the personal choice thing.
You know, you brought up an interesting thought, if you don't mind me saying so. What about
Yes.
or promoting well, you know, bags you buy in the store that can be used over and over again? I think they cost $2 or $3. They're basically a vinyl coated bag. Usually they promote the store they came from. What if Highland Beach was to promote, excuse me, I apologize, residents, and give these out or promote them as part of our, number one, the public awareness of the fact that we exist as the advisory board, and secondly, that we give the town an opportunity to be able to demonstrate, I live in Highland Beach and I recycle, and bring that.
There's only one problem, Stephen. There's only one problem. Trader Joe's and Whole Foods right now will not allow you to bring your own bags.
At the moment.
At the moment, yeah.
that
That's a
might-
great
that
idea,
might change.
however. It's a great idea for the future. It's worth
I would
keeping
like
track
to,
of.
you know, Stephen, I really appreciate that this idea comes up again. We had that some years ago. And here is a little bit the problem. So I had years ago, when it was still the natural resources community, why don't we make for the spring fling bags that have our logo, and you people
And
can
say-
go shopping, you know, can go shopping with our logo.
Right.
So,
And
but
say I recycle.
and I recycle. So, but the thing is, you need to start the year before to put something in the budget so that these bags can be produced. So
Right.
it's kind of, we have to start. So if there are at the moment talking about budget. So if our, and Jack will correct me if I'm wrong, if we say we would have a certain amount in our budget to do something like that, I think at the moment, and Town Clerk, you correct me, we are still at a time where we could do that, right? To put something, to ask for a budget item.
Isn't it tomorrow? Isn't it tomorrow, the budget
Tomorrow.
meeting? Yeah, tomorrow they're approving the budget. Why don't we can try putting a
Tomorrow's meeting is a presentation of the budget.
It's not a vote.
Yes.
I think it's an ideal opportunity to present a bag or something of that nature down the road, as you pointed out, a year from now, that says, I live in Highland Beach and I promote a clean environment.
Exactly,
It says it, and that
exactly.
big, something to that effect. And I don't see how it could be that expensive for us to put that together. And I think it might actually work in terms of the community. Because
But not buy it in China.
Well,
Mhm.
no, you can have them. I made a research back in the day, some years ago. You can have these bags in different qualities, thinner and thicker and bigger and smaller. There is usually a minimum order, you know, to put your own logo on and you personalize it. I would say from $2,000 on, we can make already some very nice, you know. So the question is, can we just ask for an amount in the budget to set aside for us for something like that?
Good idea.
So do you want to make a recommendation to the commission and we bring it to the commission?
Right.
Yeah, how does it work? Is that called a recommendation that they please put something in the budget for us? Is it called like that, or is it does our board ask for a budget item?
You would make Ingrid, correct me if I'm wrong, you would make a recommendation for the commission based on what it is you're asking for.
Okay.
If you're
Yeah, I mean,
for,
the board can make any recommendation that they wish to the commission, sorry.
Mhm,
Okay, so
mhm.
would we like to make do that now? Make the recommendation to have these, what exactly are we doing? We're having these recycling bags put into the budget with our logo. And I guess the
You want me to
verbiage.
Chairman, we want me to frame it for you. Basically, a recommendation to the commission to allocate funds for the provision of bags or recycling, I guess it could be bags or whatever they could call them, to all citizens in Highland Beach in an effort to promote the good, clean environment we want to have in our city. Is that fair enough?
That
Sure.
sounds good.
Is that what-
Yep.
We recommend to the commission that they allocate sufficient funds to provide us with the opportunity to purchase and distribute bags to the general community, which will promote the environmental resources we wish to conserve and facilitate a public response to our need to recycle products in Highland Beach.
With the logo of Highland Beach and some statement on it.
Absolutely. We have a motion, second.
I
Just
second.
a recommendation.
Okay, could we make that recommendation then, Linelda, please?
Received. We have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Member Halpern, is there anything else that you would like to discuss further on this topic?
No, thank you.
Recommendation on the natural. Okay, at the January 8th, 2020 meeting, the board decided to table the item of the recommendation on the natural resource threatened activities in Highland Beach. We need to make a recommendation to the commission for town staff to address the natural resources threatened activities in Highland Beach. Do members remember this discussion that we had in January? Okay. Is there a consensus of the board to move forward with the recommendations?
Could you briefly explain what you were talking about regarding threatened activities?
I'm trying to remember myself. Does anybody remember so that we can refresh everybody's memory? And actually, I don't think Steve was there
That's why, yeah. I apologize.
Examples could be, for example, loss of dunes, loss of beachfront, loss of wetlands in town, coastal rise. I'm just throwing that out. You know, what are the things that we see that from an environmental perspective that are threatening our town? And, you know, the priority of those.
right in the beach renourishment projects. I was watching those videos from the previous commission meetings that member Braun had recommended that we all watch. So that was a lot of information.
And in the last meeting, they decided to go together with, because it doesn't make sense to be alone in something legally against Boca Raton or Delray Beach, because it is a bigger issue. And they decided to look at it from a bigger perspective.
Yeah,
so, but you know, which I think is the right way to go, instead of spending a lot of money for a lawyer or lawsuit or something. You know,
right, because we're all connected. You know, all these beaches are.
We have all the same problems. And when you heard what Peggy's researched, it's kind of also what are the results of studies, and you know, it's kind of to hear both sides of the equation. Maybe it doesn't make that much sense to dredge the sand, and you know, it's a bigger picture. It's a bigger story than just being afraid or complaining about the dredging that they do every few years here, and getting our sand and putting it to, I mean, when I say our, that is not our sand, it is federal sand. So it was a big, interesting discussion, which goes in that what this means. It is the bigger picture, what is going on and what is threatening us. And I think that was what Jack is kind of referring to.
it all ties into, yeah, everything ties in to how we take care of the environment, like the things that we do that affect it, which also kind of goes into, I guess, in the next topic. So which was the dune restoration.
Well, let me propose a list of what I would call threatened activities. Even, there's stuff to add to it that we can maybe just list and just let the commission know these are the threatened activities we think in our town. As we said, loss of dunes, loss of beachfront, coastal flooding, which is not only coastal flooding, but also along the intercoastal, loss of wetlands. And what I also put down is Milani Park, and two environmental issues that concern me about Milani Park is traffic, since it's originally proposed about 100 to 120 car parking lot, the traffic in terms of environmental impact, and then also the Indian burial grounds on the east side of the of A1A also. So those are the things that come to mind. And are there other issues that would really, in terms of what's going on? I'm hearing background voices. Okay, excuse me. So I don't know, are there other issues?
I think
Can I chime in real quick? This is Ingrid Allen. I'm hoping everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make the board aware, and I know that the town manager back in your December meeting brought up the coastal resiliency partnership that the town is involved in with other municipalities, coastal municipalities in Palm Beach County. I just wanted to advise the board that this coastal resiliency partnership is in the process of coming up with a climate change vulnerability assessment. Again, this is a partnership, so there's several municipalities that are involved. In that climate change vulnerability assessment, they have identified several threats. And I just want to read these to the board because they do some of them mimic the list that Mr. Halpern referenced. So just want you to be aware of them. Again, they're working on the assessment. We should be having a workshop in the near future, in the next few months. And we have a community captain that I've been working with and getting information from the town to incorporate it in the assessment. So let me just go through these threats just for your information. There are 12 threats that they've identified. The first one is high winds. They're not in any particular order. High winds, rainfall-induced flooding, harmful algae blooms, pest and disease outbreaks, extreme heat, drought, wildfire, shoreline recession, tidal flooding, storm surge, groundwater inundation, and saltwater intrusion. Just for your information.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Should we not be addressing threats we can actually address in Highland Beach?
Oh, by all means, I just wanted the board to be aware of what the partnership has identified. Again, it's a more of a group effort, but just for the record.
Ms. Allen, that wasn't the criticism. I was just
Oh,
suggesting.
no, not at all.
The focus of our board, and this is a general comment, which I wanted to make to Chairman Raj and basically to the whole board. Exactly what are we functioning as in terms of helping the public right now to understand, number one, the threats that are associated with our environmental resources, and number two, what we can do about them. Because I also went back at Ms. Braun's request and looked at the actual meetings and heard the entire 2-hour presentation, I believe, by Gordon Thompson from Barrett Engineering, and listened intently to what he had to say, which effectively came down to, we can't afford to do anything about this, and we're not really in a position to do anything about it for 6 to 10 more years. So we really have to come to grips with the idea that, number one, he didn't present this to the board, to our advisory board, which I thought was the better conduit to get to the commission to begin with. And number two, we're being excluded in the loop in regards to making any constructive remarks to the commission, whether this is or is not a good idea. And I was wondering, I'm perhaps out loud, and I'm a relatively new member of this board, as to what function we serve if we don't make advisory remarks to the actual commission as to what we think they should be focusing their attention on, because they spent 2 hours or more listening to a presentation, and then concluded by the remarks that I heard that there's nothing they're going to do about it, or we can't afford to do anything about it. We have no inclination to do anything about it as a community. So under those circumstances, I have a list from the last meeting, the minutes that I'm reading from page 5 of the last meeting, which Town Planner Allen basically said, trash on the beach, vegetation in the ocean, beach erosion, invasive species on the beach, public ambivalence or lack of education as being a threat to our environment. And those, I think, are really valid points and something we can address. We can try to bring recommendations to the commission to facilitate some type of help in that respect. And one of the things that I was going to suggest perhaps later on was the beach cleanup activities and things of that nature, because we are not getting anywhere in regards to moving forward on that. I know that Diane Matherman is basically suggesting bags, buckets or whatever, and I'm not sure if this is the right part of the meeting to talk about it, because this may be where old business meets new business. But the reality is we have to function one way or the other, and we have to say conclusively to the commission, we'd like you to do this, this, and this. We'd like you to allocate funds for this. We'd like you to move forward on it instead of just discussing it in generality, I suppose.
Steve, my intention when I brought this up eons ago about the threatened activities was I thought we can make up a full list of everything that threatens our town environmentally, then look at that list to see what can we do about realistically that is simple to do, what are the things we need money to do, what we need permission to do, or what else. And that was my intention, and I still believe in that, in developing an exhaustive list and then taking a look at it to see what we can do and prioritizing that list. Regarding Gordon's presentation to the board, not from a bragging point of view, I was originally involved in hiring him for the study here in the town. I was on the selection committee. And I bring this up because I had recommended him to speak at that commission meeting. I don't think he was pointed in the right direction in terms of his talk. For example, he talked about the positive accretion across the town. Yes, we have a positive accretion of sand. Our problem is from what we call mile 199 south or 45 Ocean South. We didn't get into some of the subjects we really needed to get into. And we're not okay for the next 40 years. It depends on where you're at in the town. But that's a whole nother subject from that point of view. But anyway, so coming back to threatened activities, that was my thought. Make up a list. What can we do about it? What can't we do about it? What do we need commission about? What do we need to work with others? I think Marshall's talk at the last meeting with Peggy, Commissioner Peggy, where he talked about trying to draft up a position and try and get other governments involved and go to Tallahassee and try and do that. So we look at the consequences of our action with respect to the beaches and some of these other factors. I think was marvelous. I commend Marshall and Peggy for what they did on that. But anyway, so that's my suggestion, and I'll sit back.
If I could just add to that, the list that I referenced at the last meeting in January, that was coming from Mr. Halpern. Those were the items that he had mentioned at the December 9th meeting. I was just repeating those list of items that he had placed on the record.
They were credited to you, so I didn't know any better, Ms. Allen. Sorry.
It's okay. No.
I do have a comment to make, if you don't mind. What can we do now? I mean, as I said, I'd like some guidance from the chairman, chairperson, excuse me, chairwoman, whatever, chair, as to what we do now to facilitate some communication with the commission as to what we can do about these items. Because I think the list was really good, Jack. I thought that having a focus on beach erosion, suggesting to homeowners who have homes on the beach what they can and can't plant on the dunes, or what they should be planting on the dunes to facilitate locking the dunes in, especially 45 South, which effectively you're concerned about because of Milani Park and because of the fact that it happens to be open area and open dunes, which really is a situation which could be wiped out in a matter of one storm. So bearing in mind that that's a factor, how do we go about making recommendations?
Well, the first thing we need to do is I think make the recommendation to prioritize the list, or at least have the list and look at it and see what's on there. Then I think that we need to individually prioritize from that list
I would like to say something about the situation on the dunes and the vegetation there. I
Well,
spoke.
think about that. Like there's a little bit later in the meeting, there's a discussion on the dunes, on preserving the dunes.
No, the thing is that now with the two new with our mayor and a new commissioner, I spoke in the last real meeting about the invasive species on the beach, and I was approached by Mr. Shoemaker, and Mr. Shoemaker met the person who years ago would have a town hall presentation about the vegetation on the beach. So I can only say from that perspective that the new commissioner is already well informed and is already on that topic. So that was just an information that the new commission is on a kind of yeah, on a path of addressing that.
Okay. Thank you. But did we want to, as a board, make a recommendation for the commission to look at this list, take a look at our.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's at least do that so that they have the list in front of them. Does that sound okay to everyone? So that at least they have something that they can see, you know, and then we can move from there as to prioritize items on a list that, like the first 3 that we feel that we can start making, creating solutions, or, you know, thinking of solutions to problems. Like, let's say the beach cleanup, like how we can tackle that, you know, but they need to have this list in front of them first, or, you know.
Bearing in mind, we don't have a lot of control over environmental factors, which is what the combined meeting, I'm sorry, Ms. Allen, there's some kind of a community association. You mentioned earlier between Highland Beach and other communities locally regarding the environmental problems. We can't address the environmental problems because obviously they're beyond our control. But I like the idea of prioritizing it right now. I think Jack's list that Ms. Allen recounted is excellent, and we can put it on top of the list. And I think it goes to your point, Chairman, that basically trash on the beach is something we can address, and it can be a top priority, and we can suggest to the board that this is something which not only is something we have to do, but it's very doable to facilitate a change.
Right.
Diane has great ideas, and Jack's had great ideas, and let's start now, because as far as I know, this is the only forum we have to do this. Am I correct?
Okay. Yes. You know, this is the time that we meet, so that's just when we should have our, you know, think of solutions. Sorry.
Can we agree on can we agree on an order of priority now and just start a list?
Yeah, if everyone's okay with doing that, that's fine. We have the list. Jack just, you know, if anybody, well, it's been recorded, so it's been taken down, but what are the top 3, your top, should we do top 3, or should we do just focus on 1 or 2 to make it?
I would vote for the top priority being the cleanup of trash on the beach.
Okay, is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, I am as well. So,
I would put number 2 that we're going after later, and I think we can have control of it, is dune restoration. And I'll throw out some ideas when we get into that agenda item.
okay. So.
And we have already the support of one commissioner who is well informed about it.
Okay. So can we make a recommendation though for the town for the commissioners to be provided the list of multiple items, so that they at least have that list, and then we can move on to prioritizing the cleanup, because they should have the list of items that are, you know, that we feel are important to us and the environment.
I think we should do that list, and also state to begin with the 3 what's that? To begin with, the three that we just recommended to be the most important at the moment.
Okay, so Linelda, could you recommend that the list that we've created be provided to the commission?
And a third item, I think we only have two, and I think Steve had said three. I'd like to add Milani Park from environmental impact point of view.
I'm just talking about the complete list, though, of all the items, like all the environmental, natural resource threatened activities, like all.
Yeah, but then we were going to prioritize the first three.
I know, but let's just provide them with the list and the entire list so that they have that, and then we can give a second recommendation of our priorities, of the priorities. Does that sound okay?
I think it'd be
Within the
much-
statement that we're going to send to them?
Yes, we'll provide them the list. Can we do that, Linelda? Are you there? Am I not able to hear?
Yes, I'll turn it over to Ingrid because she is the board liaison.
Oh, okay, Ingrid, I'm sorry.
Sure, you could provide the list. And again, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm looking at the list from the minutes from December 9th meeting. Again, I'll go down it. It's trash on the beach. I'm going to list all them. Beach erosion, vegetation on the ocean, invasive species on the beach. Then it just says beach after that. Stormwater, then Milani Park, east of A1A historical resources, and then air quality, and then public ambivalence of or lack of education. And then it just says beach again. I'm just concerned, again, I'm just thinking out loud. You're going to provide the list to the commission, and these are very broad subjects. So stormwater, well, what about stormwater? You have vegetation on the ocean. What about vegetation on the ocean? I'm just concerned the commission might see the list and determine, okay, what is it about these things that the board is concerned about?
Okay, so
Substance, I guess, is where I'm getting at.
Okay, so maybe we'll just do the priorities, just one by. We'll keep the list in our group and then send them the priorities. So let's do beach cleanup, and then Jack, you had said the dune restoration is the second priority that we should talk about.
And
What
I'm
are
proposing Milani Park and the environmental impact to Milani Park is number
Yeah, but Jack, Milani Park is a complicated subject that goes into whether or not we can stop Palm Beach County from putting a park in an area we don't want them to put it into, or we don't feel it's appropriate. So again, with all respect, I'm not so certain that would be a really persuasive item to put on the list, because they probably wouldn't want to address it that way as an environmental concern. They're addressing it as a total concern to the town insofar as the impact it'll have on the town and the priorities the town has in regards to the care and maintenance of its overall, boundaries. If that didn't sound right, I'm sorry about that, being eloquent, but the reality is this should be a workable project. And since this is the only forum I have to present it, I think the best thing to do, and I agree with Ms. Allen about this, is to elaborate as to what you want to do with the list. Make the three of the trash in the dunes definitely is a big problem for the residents, for us. I know members of the board have been very concerned about it and continue to be concerned about it. So if this is the only forum we have to discuss it, let's discuss it now and go into detail. And I'm not at all I'm dissuaded by the idea that Milani Park is not going to be a problem. Please understand that. I'm a huge opponent of Milani Park for lots of reasons. But the reality is we have to get to the board, get to the commission, legitimate recommendations that can be implemented with their assistance. And if we don't tell them, for instance, in trash cleanup, we want them to allocate a person or a sanitation worker from the city that basically will go on the beach and walk the beach once a week or twice a week and facilitate making sure that the garbage pails are emptied, that things are picked up. They're not going to do anything for us at all. And I don't know if you like it in writing or you want suggestions presented in a different meeting and a written form, that's fine. But I think under the circumstances, there's no persuasion associated with giving a list to them. It's going to have to be, as Town Planner Allen has said, a a list that goes along with recommendations specific to the individual topic you're asking for. And if I'm going
Okay,
to the board, please let me know.
let's do that then. So let's start with the beach, cleaning up the beaches, like with trash. What solutions do we have? What recommendations do we have to make this happen? So let's, we've talked about and talked and talked, but when nothing ever happens. So what can we do to make this happen, as soon as possible? What can we do? Do we have ideas? How do we do this? How do we tackle it? I know.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Diane.
Oh,
You're muted. You're muted. Okay.
well, Diane, I know she had texted me during this meeting because she can't, but it keeps ringing, not off my phone, off my computer. Sorry, Diane. That's why I said, please stop texting me. But it says she's saying sand. Her suggestions are beach cleanup and sand dune restoration. So that's basically what we all agreed. So beach cleanup. Let's back to the beach cleanup. How can we do this? How can we? I know that when we have talked about it, it's been our ability as a group has been limited. They were saying there should be a club, a town club. How do we do this?
Okay, may I continue for a minute? We have
Sure.
two sources here that I see. We have citizens and we have city. The citizens can do some of the work by what Diane mentioned in the prior meeting, which I thought was a great idea, the bucket idea from Boca Raton, which allows you to put up a bucket tree at the main entrances to our private beach or beach areas. And I'm speaking for you now, Diane, so correct me if I'm wrong. And the bucket idea is a citizen promoted situation where people carry a bucket onto the beach and literally actually pick up debris, which I do anyway without the bucket, but that's not the best. Number one. The other is the city idea. The city has to ask, and the city should have enough resources to be able to facilitate giving us a sanitation worker or someone they can hire to walk that beach. And considering how much money we're not spending on dune restoration through dredging or other projects which cost millions of dollars, how much can it really cost our budget as a city to facilitate having some responsible official or person walk, drive on that beach and effectively try to pick up the larger pieces of debris and make sure that the beach is kept in as pristine condition that it actually is in right now. And we have, by the way, having been in almost all the beaches from Miami all the way up to Daytona, we have one of the nicest beaches of all of these cities. But we only have it because we have a low impact situation where we have less residents and less individuals on the beach and less public invasion of the beach, we'll call it. Well, I'm sorry, outside public invasion. We have Highland Beach residents. So in that circumstance, we have the two resources are city resources and citizen resources. And if I had a vote, I would say, ask the commission to appoint someone and add it to the budget if they have to facilitate having a worker dedicated to the idea of policing the beach at least once or twice a week and making sure that everything is kept in order. I know they pick up the garbage, but they don't do much more than that at this point. And unless we have someone whose actually job is to do that, we're not going to be able to do it. The citizens angle, we have to have money to put up those trees and money to put up the buckets. I don't know whether we have a budget for that either, but that's the two prongs I would consider as being what we need to approach the commission with.
So maybe creating a budget, a place in the budget for an individual. Like our recommendation is to, create to have in the budget a person that is employed by the city that will do these things, that will help with the cleaning up.
We are beach, and we should understand that beach means something more than just simply the name of our town. We were 2.6 miles, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right about Ms. Allen? 2 or 3, we're at 3 miles of actual town here. And it's all
3.2.
3.2, thank you. And the reality is, this should be a primary concern to the commission. And keeping that beach as pristine as possible for the benefit of all the residents of Highland Beach is a big priority. And if they can't find whatever thousands of dollars they need to facilitate having a worker go out there and do this work, and there's something wrong with the way we're set up as a town, and we're not prioritizing what we effectively are. I mean, people don't live in Highland Beach so they can go to the river or, you know, to go to or go inland 20, 30 miles. They basically live here because they want to enjoy the ocean. They want to look out over a pristine beach. They want to enjoy the pristine beach. So this is the message we have to send. And I'm sorry if I'm being overly effusive about this, but it really is what we are about. And I thought that's what this board was functioning for.
I
I
will-
may add, oh, go ahead. I was
Thanks,
gonna
Steve.
add
That's
something
what-
if that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Be, I'm sorry if I just may add one thing. Just be mindful later on in the agenda, items 9C. I provided an agenda memorandum about this issue of beach cleanup and maintenance. The board at the January meeting had asked staff to look at what the code says with regards to beach cleanup and maintenance. So later on in the agenda, I'm going to talk about this. So just want you all to be mindful that this discussion is to be held a little bit later on.
I would like to add that, Stephen, this is not the first time that comes up. And years ago, we wanted to have garbage cans on the beach, and it was a long discussion because the problem was, how do we collect them? How do we get them off the beach? Because we don't have the access. It died because of that, and a lot of things are dying out because it is a private beach that you need certain permission to go on the beach. So, but I'm happy to hear something from Ellen, Ingrid Ellen. Maybe there are some more new developments that would be great. But the garbage can discussion we had, and there are I think 4 different companies who clean the beach and be paid from the owners who live on the beach. That is one thing, but they don't go off their trucks and collect the little stuff that is flying around. So they put the stuff in the sand, but they don't take it off. So that is I guess the situation that Stephen feels, that somebody goes on the beach and does exactly that, what the other people don't do. And to the other coastline thing, Peggy found out Highland Beach has around 10 miles of coastline, with the intercoastal, with the waterways, with the Spanish River. So Highland Beach has 10 miles of coastline. Not here on the Atlantic, but all the other waterways in Highland Beach are 10 miles.
Right.
Yes.
Two
With the
comments.
marinas and
So can we make the recommendation? I mean, is everybody, do you guys agree with that? With, you know, back to what Steve was saying, that can we make a recommendation to the commission to have this employee that is dedicated to the beach and maintaining it clean, you know, helping maintain it clean, and kind of, you know, somebody. I think there should be somebody who's actually out there and, you know, is being paid by the town for this. Can we do this?
aside from, we also, if I may, didn't we speak about students in the community work? Of course, right now things are difficult, but if you had a supervisor checking on and having these kids do different sections as their community projects,
Right, but
then
there
the
needs
cost
to be,
would be less.
I think that the town needs to take initiative and hire someone to do that. So can we, I mean, there needs to be somebody. They need to put that in the budget. It's important, like,
So let's make that recommendation.
Before you make the formal recommendation, I think you ought to approach it from the point of view of being a threat. I like the idea of being a threat to our natural resource, because I think it's more persuasive to the commission as a requirement for them to facilitate somebody. If we say to them point blank, if you don't bring somebody into this position and we don't facilitate somebody working for the town for our benefit, clean the beach, they're not going to be too disposed to do this. If it's just a recommendation that says, hey, we want to preserve the beach, it would look better if it's cleaned up, it's fine. But the fact that there's debris now, and there's even more debris lately, as a matter of fact, for some reason, than it has been the last couple of years, then they may be, they may feel more of a concern or pressure to facilitate this and allocate the funds we need or they need to justify having someone do this. As far as access,
maybe a title, if we gave that person a title that had, like threat, like preventative, position type to their title, that might help with that.
resource officer.
I'm sorry?
Environmental resource officer, someone who would police it, but environmental resource worker. And somebody basically is there, but I know you're laughing, yeah, I'm sorry, but unfortunately we need to have some direction here, because I don't think, I've heard this conversation. Before I got involved with the board, I watched some of your meetings, and I know you're struggling to make this happen, but the reality is it's not gonna happen unless we make a concrete suggestion. And I agree with you, give them a board, environmental resource workers, or I know the first thing they're gonna do is try to use the actual resources they have, which is whatever department, I suppose. I'm not even sure, do we have anybody in our, I'm gonna ask Ms. Allen this. Does the town have somebody working in a department which would be able to do this?
Well, we have a code compliance officer, right, that implements the code. And if someone's in violation of the code, then they, he can write a violation. Again, in my memorandum, which is later on the agenda, I talk about what the code says about littering on private beaches. And there's a provision that that the owner of private property should not allow trash, refuse, or debris to remain on his property for a period of time greater than 7 days after notification by the town. It says any such trash, refuse, or debris located upon private beachfront property shall be properly disposed of in a manner otherwise provided by the codes and regulations of the town. Then it goes on to talk about violation. Any private property owner found to be in violation of the section shall be subject to the jurisdiction of the town's code enforcement ordinance and subject to penalties prescribed by the code enforcement board for each day a violation is determined to exist. So I reached out, and again, I was going to discuss this later on, but I reached out to the town's code compliance officer. We only have one. And I asked him if he's given any violations specific to this section of the code. He indicated that he didn't. Now, again, be mindful, we have one code officer for the entire town. So you can't have somebody 24 hours, 7 days a week. Yes, it's a small town, but there's a lot of area to cover. So I think it's important to keep this in mind, that we do have provisions in the code about littering on private beaches.
Yeah, but that's not, like you said, it's one person. I mean, it sounds like they need, they need like this other person.
Maybe have someone that's just devoted to the beach area. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I mean, you can make that recommendation if you so desire.
Yeah, because that code enforcement officer is not cleaning anything either. He's not picking up. He's just saying you need to pick up.
Correct.
So we need somebody who's going to do more than that, than just point out, what needs to be cleaned up and leave it there.
So you want that person to actually pick up the trash?
Yeah, I think.
Well, again, I think that, we might have to fine tune that a bit. Again, there may be some, I don't know if people will have issue with picking up the trash. I mean, I guess anything can be.
They're getting paid for it. If they're getting paid for it, that's their job. It's part of their job description. It needs to be in their job description of, before they even take the position.
Yeah, but the code said that littering is a responsibility of the property owner on those private beaches. Again, I'm thinking out loud. I don't know if there will be issue with.
How far?
Maybe there won't be an issue. I don't know.
But then it goes back to how far does a property owner's responsibility go? All the way to the water?
No.
Well, that's another thing I'm going to bring up in my item. I've gone ahead and provided some maps that I'm going to show you. It was not part of your recommendation, but I felt like that based on the January meeting discussion, there was some confusion about property lines, these eastern beachfront property lines. I provided some maps. I'll go through them. I'm going to show you some samples of how the property lines, again, those easternmost property lines on the beach, how they vary from parcel to parcel. Some property lines go out into the water, some don't. Some are, further west than others. So it depends on the parcel.
Well, maybe this person, this environmental resource officer can address those areas using that map that aren't, that the homeowners aren't responsible for. Like all that area, they'll have the map.
Yeah, but I think Jack wants to say something.
Unmute yourself.
Fine. A couple of points. One, I just want to come back. I don't want to lose something that you said before, Steve. I think we're in a unique position in terms of our commission. I think we are very lucky to have the commission that we have right now. And I think they're very supportive of the environment and doing things going forward. And I appreciate our new commission, number one. Number two, in terms of the whole thing, in terms of beach cleanup, we can't say you need one person full-time, one person half-time, 3.5 people, 2 students. We don't know. What we need to do is tell the board what our objectives are. We need trash cans on the beach. We need them picked up, I don't know, daily, every other day, every third day. I don't know. That is open for question. We need to state that. We need someone to maybe walk the beach and if we want, and maybe do some pickup outside of private property. And at the same time, if he sees private property that doesn't meet code, reporting it to the code enforcement officer. I think that's the simplest way to do it. And I don't think you need somebody to collect the garbage pails and walk the beach one time in the day, someone full time. I mean, I can walk that beach and dump the garbage pails in one morning, and without even a little jitney to ride around in. So that's my thought, is let's tell them what we need, not about hiring.
Well, with all respect, we have a maintenance department in Highland Beach, obviously. We have someone that rides down A1A once a week at least and collects the public garbage pails that are on A1A. That same individual or individuals must be the ones collecting the garbage along the beach. So that department already exists. All we need is to have the commission hire additional employees for that department and make them into environmental resource maintenance employees, which means the beach, and dedicate that individual for at least several hours a week to facilitate cleaning the beach. That's something which is an easy fix and doesn't require a significant change in the way Highland Beach operates, at least in my opinion, of course. To your point, Jack, about the commission, I don't know whether the commission is going to be receptive to spending any more money than it has to, than the last commission did, because we obviously are probably going to face a budget shortfall this year, and we're going to face even a bigger budget shortfall next year when the total economic impact of COVID-19 hits us all. That's going to be a real challenge. But as far as what we need to do now, we prioritize the situation and we say to them, we really need you to look into this matter. Find someone in your department or hire someone on a part-time basis to work with your department to do this. We're going to be in better shape. And they're going to possibly be persuaded to do it. I'm not suggesting it's a perfect solution, but that's the recommendation I would make to the commission. Please move forward and get someone to do this and prioritize it. And one last point, which I want to remind everyone here. The last meeting I attended was, I believe, in December. I understand there's a sword and a carrot approach to everything. The situation involving homeowners policing their own beach and being responsible and being fined or being held in violation because of the beach is going to have a fallout. And the fallout's going to be the homeowners are going to start screaming for the police to remove individuals from the beach that are causing, allegedly, the problems they're facing now. So this is going to be counterproductive to our use of the beach, because if we have a situation where the high tide mark is effectively the owner's property line, and Ms. Allen will go to that in a little while, if we're going to impose a situation where homeowners are now going to start to retaliate against the citizens of Highland Beach that are using this facility. Most of us realize and know debris is not coming from these people, it's coming from the ocean. But the homeowners don't care. So they're going to still come after the citizens. So in order to avoid this at a much lesser expense, having a worker from the town simply do the job, or at least try to do some of the job, is in the end going to facilitate an immediate result and avoid the possibility of having this negative effect on the public. Because I can assure you that the individuals that live along the beach who have multi-million-dollar homes have the resources to hire attorneys and go after anybody who goes after them in a bigger way than you ever would expect. And I've been, unfortunately, in a situation, a controversy of one of those homeowners on behalf of the residents of Highland Isles. And I don't prefer to go back into that situation again, because they do have guns and they will come after legal guns. I think they will threaten you and they will take legal action against the town. And then the commission will back down and we'll get nowhere. So if we never go down that road and start asking for policing or ordinance violations, we're probably going to be in a better position in the long run than we would if we tried to force the code compliance that Ms. Allen was mentioning earlier. Of course, it's my opinion, my experience, but if you have a different opinion about that, I'll concede to it.
No, I agree with you, Steve. Like, I want to have this individual or
I have to.
a couple individuals hired to environment, to clean up the environment, to the beaches, to man the beaches. I just think it's a simple recommendation that we could do today. So, I mean, can we do that? Is there any reason why we're not making that recommendation right this second? I mean, do we have to get very specific? I mean, more than we have?
Can we make a motion, Madam Clerk?
Like, Renelda, is everybody agreeing with this? Or does anybody oppose it?
I agree with it, but shouldn't we wait until Ingrid is telling us what she had prepared? Maybe that's then a better.
I don't think that's gonna.
Ingrid, would that affect it, or can we go ahead with our recommendation? What do you think?
I think it might be helpful. I think it might give the board some perspective that maybe some didn't have with regards to those property lines.
Okay.
It's gonna matter if it's a person. I mean, just getting that person into getting this officer, this environmental resource officer position recommended. I don't think that Ingrid's information is gonna, change that person is needed or not. They're needed.
Unless Ingrid's gonna tell us that we can't, because we would be going on someone else's property, at which point we would have a problem, which is one of the things brought up at another meeting in the past also,
Right.
Exactly where the lines are. I think he has that information. So I agree with Member Braun about being in a position now. Well, why don't we wait a moment for her to talk about it? Maybe we, honestly, these topics overlap. So this is old business and new business is coming up. I don't think it's any restriction on us merging them. Is there? Chairman? Chairperson? Like jump ahead? Or...
I don't know, Lenelda. Lenelda, are you there? Is it? I guess should we just move on then to new business?
Sure. Make the recommendation any way you want, right? Yeah, but we don't have to wait. We can make it now or half an hour from now or whatever.
If you want more information. I mean, I already want to make the recommendation, but we can listen to more information. I just feel like I want to do something today, that's, okay. This topic is later on. So do we want to just hold the rest of this because the next topic is nomination of chairperson. So I need a little guidance. Lenelda, are you there? Can you let me, can I just go on to new business?
You can go on, you can move on to the next item. I believe Town Planner Allen does have a portion in the agenda where she's going to discuss the topic, and later on you can pick the recommendation.
Okay, so
I know Lenelda's offline, is not on, but I don't know if you can, and this is more a question for her, if you can make your motion. I don't know, once you move on to another item, if you can go back and then amend your recommendation once you've moved on. That I'm not sure, but.
Right, so it's not a motion, it's a recommendation. And I guess it'd be contingent upon what you have to say, if there are any codes that will violate that, so they can move on to the next item and then talk about it when you discuss your item.
Okay.
Okay, so we're fine to move to just save this discussion then till we get to the Ingrid's portion.
There's two more problems to it also, isn't there? Trash was just one of them.
Yeah, so, okay, so let's go on to new business. We'll hold that until a little bit later. New business, this item is before the board for nomination of a chairperson, according to resolution number 19-029, our advisory board and committees appointment process, section 9. It should be common practice that no member shall serve as chair until he or she have served for 1 full year on the advisory board, unless no existing member is willing to serve as a chairperson or vice chairperson. Is there a motion to nominate? Is there any, does anybody want to nominate anyone?
I'd like to nominate Stephen Parks for chair.
Me too.
Here. Thank you, but I haven't served for a year.
When Nev became, we were all not here for a year. I guess there are exceptions.
Well, it says unless no existing member is willing to serve as chairperson or vice chair.
I think we need Steve's legal background for this upcoming.
Yes, exactly, because of all the
hands-on.
legal environmental issues, I think Steve is well prepared.
And he's free.
And he's free. Ha ha!
You haven't gotten the bill yet, Jack. How do you know that?
Okay, so is all right. So okay, so is there a motion to nominate Steve as a chairperson for this? There is. Is there a second?
Katrina.
Second. No,
Okay.
no.
No, it's the
No.
chairperson. Chairperson.
No,
I
not,
thought.
no.
No,
I have
no,
to-
not you. No, we're talking about Stephen. I thought you seconded.
I second him, yes.
Okay, second it. Any
Yes.
opposed?
Yeah,
No.
me too.
Okay. Then that's decided.
You know, vote, Niev.
I'm sorry.
Is that a formal vote? And by the way, I did not mean to disinherit you as a chairperson. I was completely unexpected of that because I don't know whether you wanted to serve or not.
Oh, no, I want what's best for our board. And I think that I agree with everyone. So I'm happy to have you.
I'm honored to be your
You're on
chairperson.
the board. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so then we need to move on to a nomination of a vice chairperson. This item is before the board for nomination of a vice chairperson according to the resolution number 19-029, our advisory board and committee appointees, committee appointment process. Section 9 should be common practice that member shall serve as vice chair until he or she has served for 1 full year on the advisory board, unless no existing member is willing to serve as chairperson or vice chairperson. Is there a nomination for a vice chairperson to the board?
I nominate Jack.
I have to decline. Thank you for the honor. I'm overwhelmed with my guardian ad litem stuff right now.
Yeah,
I was in court 4 days last week.
Oh,
And it's
well,
not going to get, and again, it's not going to get any better this summer.
no.
I would like to keep Niev as a vice chairperson because I think she'd be an excellent resource and has been one for the board in the last year or so, as far as I know. So I'm nominating Niev as a vice chairperson. And I believe Ms. Matherman is just seconded. We have a vote.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so there's a second. So all in favor say yes.
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 Okay. Any
Okay.
opposed say no.
Okay, so at this point, since we have a new chair and a new vice chair, now Mr. Parks take over the remainder of the meeting, unless he wants to allow Ms. Vice Chairperson Mirage to continue on.
I believe Ms. Mirage presented the meeting and the agenda, so I think it'd be appropriate for her to continue forward with the meeting at this point. She, by all means, I'll be glad to help any way I can.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. And I have the information in front of me, so.
I know you have some points coming up also. I want to make sure they're addressed in your order.
All right, great. So let's see here. Items, let's see. 9C, okay, beach cleanup and maintenance. I refer this item to Town Planner Allen.
Okay, all right, so if the board recalls at your January 8th, 2020 meeting, which was the last board meeting as a result of the COVID-19 state of emergency, the board made a recommendation to have staff research the town code of ordinances for regulations that address beach cleanup and beach maintenance. The board determined that an appropriate first step in addressing the topic of keeping beaches clean was to see what the actual code says with regards to this topic. Now, in your packet there, I provided you the copy of Chapter 5 from the Town Code of Ordinances. The title of this chapter is Beaches and Boats. And this particular chapter provides regulations about littering and trash on the beach. Now, if you go specifically to Section 5-9C, this addresses private beaches, which I read verbatim earlier in the meeting. And as I mentioned, I did reach out to the code officer because there's a violation component there. And he had mentioned that he hasn't given any violations specific to this code provision. Now, what I wanted to bring up, and which was sort of a separate item, it wasn't part of the board's recommendation, but I thought it was very relevant because at the January meeting, there was some discussion about these property lines on these beachfront properties, the easternmost property lines. And in order to provide the board some clarity on this issue, I've prepared a few maps that show the current eastern property lines. And this information is based upon the information from the Palm Beach County Property Appraiser's website. You can actually go to the Palm Beach County Property Appraiser's website. You can look up any parcel in Palm Beach County, not just obviously the beach parcels. Let me go ahead and give that website address. It's www.pb, that's B as in boy, C as in Charlie, GOV as in Victor.com/PAPA, and that's P as in Paul. Can we go ahead to the PowerPoint? Thank you. So what I've done is I've just taken a random sample of properties in the northern, central, and southern sections of the town to show, again, the board, those eastern property lines. I believe some of you are not familiar with those property lines or familiar with the Palm Beach County Property Appraiser's website. What the goal of showing you this is to show that these lines, again, the easternmost property lines, they do vary from parcel to parcel. Some property lines go all the way into water, some do not. Now, the goal of me showing you this maps are not really to argue why some are further eastward, some are a little bit more westward. It's just to show you really the reality on the ground. I mean, the lines obviously are not visible on the ground, but just to show you how existing property lines are. So let's start off with this one here. This is, again, the northern section of the town. Again, just a random sample of properties. I've gone ahead and added the actual address numbers here. And I put a little white arrow. I'm hoping you all can see this. It says eastern property lines. You could see these obviously don't go out into the water. This green line here is the eastern property line for these parcels. We go on to the next slide is another section of the northern part of town. This is actually now moving a little bit south. Again, here are the addresses. You can see 2635 and 2633. Look at that easternmost property line. It's pretty much out to the shore. Whereas if you the parcel just south of it, 2701, that property line is westward of the property lines just to the north. And if we go to the next slide, please. Here here's the central section of the town. Again, look at the property lines for 3621. I put a white arrow. And then as you go south, 3701 extends a little bit more eastward, the same as 3711. And then we can move on to the next slide. This is the southern section of the town. Again, the property addresses here are listed. Here you have quite a different, some different property lines. For 4513, you can see the white arrow. The property line is midway along the beach, whereas for 4515 through 4519, the property line is way westward. And then the property just adjacent to that, to the south, 4521, you could see the property line again moves further eastward. So this is what I was just trying to show the board. It's really a courtesy to the board, just to give you perspective that it's not just one line, one property line that runs all the way down the beach. It does vary from parcel to parcel.
Could you put that back up for one moment, please? The last slide you had on. Could you identify where 45 South is, Ms. Allen? Do you know?
You mean 45, are you talking about a particular address?
Right, well, 45 South would be somewhere in the 4500 range. It's a big condominium. I think it's the 4505 building.
Again, oh, this one right here, 4505, there you go.
Isn't that it should be, Jack, am I correct? Is that 45 Ocean, 45 South rather?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's our north building.
Right, so just north of that, we're looking at more or less Ocean Place Estates or Ocean Estates, whatever. Am I correct on that?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I might, it doesn't look right, but whatever. I just want to point out something which perhaps was addressed. I tried to bring it up at a prior meeting. Property lines on 4521, for instance, which is in front of us right now. It looks like the property line goes right out to about 10 feet from the water, or at least the water as it was in the day the picture was taken. In reality, that's not the case. Because if that is 45 Ocean, and having done research on that particular—
Stephen, that is not 4505 South Ocean Boulevard.
Okay, so it's not, well, yeah, I know that. So that can't be 45 South then, 4505, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
It is not 4505 South Ocean Boulevard. It is not the 45 Ocean condominium.
Okay, it doesn't look right either, because Ocean Place Estates is like one continuous development. That doesn't look correct. But one way or the other, what I wanted to point out to the members and the advisory board is that although they may have the property rights that go as far as the ocean in some cases, at least in respect to the deeds that I examined, they have the responsibility of allowing the public full access to the beach right up to their dune. This is where our problems came up, and this is why I asked for a legal opinion or the town manager, Marshall Blabady, to investigate the deeds, because the problem is going to surface, and continuing with the discussion Ms. Allen's bringing up, as to who is responsible for policing that beach. And the argument that's going to be raised by the homeowners are, our deeds do not allow us to restrict public access to the beach. Therefore, Highland Beach residents are using that beach, and therefore Highland Beach residents are responsible for policing the beach insofar as debris is concerned. This is a reality. And again, I'm looking at a picture now, which probably is not what I had in mind, but it does indicate that a property line, which apparently goes out as far as the water, is by no means the restriction we have to walk across it. We have the rights to walk, if that is 45 South, or 45 Ocean, whatever, all the way along it. And that's very important, because we cannot enforce codes. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. It would be detrimental to try to enforce codes that require the individual private property owners to police the beach if it substantially impacts on our ability to use the beach as citizens. That's my opinion. That's what I wanted to bring up. I was trying to look it up and look at the deed itself, and I can bring you the deeds at the next meeting or show you, circulate them to the members. But there are specific provisions in these deeds which require homeowner cooperation with the public. Hence our problem with who's going to be responsible for cleaning up the garbage. And that's why I thought it would be more advantageous for us to simply have the town appoint someone as an environmental resource waste management or manager or whatever to go out there, like Nia was saying, and like I was saying, as opposed to trying to get code enforcement to go out there and start sending violation notices to these individuals.
My apologies, that address is actually 4605. Sorry about that.
For the north then. Did you do 4,500? Did you do any southern areas?
Hold on, let me just double check. It should be, just, hold on one moment. Yeah, that is, I'm sorry, it's 4605 South Ocean Boulevard. Where it says 45, it's 45, it's 4605.
So that's still in the middle of town then.
Yeah,
45 Ocean would just be right at the top of the picture, just off the picture on the north side of the picture. Right where the pointer is.
it's not, yeah, it's not shown. My apologies, that's
That should be 45 Ocean.
4505 should be 4605, sorry.
You can actually see the
And it's
property.
hypo from the 5 to the 6.
Okay, if we could see the properties just to the north of where 4513 is listed, we'd see what I'm talking about, because we'd see property lines associated with Ocean Place Estates, which may in fact go beyond where they actually have the right to stop the public from using the beach. That's my point. And it goes to the issue about whether or not we can enforce restrictions on the use of the beach on individuals that otherwise have to allow the public to use that beach area. And that's my concern. And I would imagine, I don't know about 4513, what their restrictions are, but I would like to see the deeds to see whether or not they have the same proviso in there, which says that they have to allow beach access right up to the dune. Frankly, no one's ever stopped me from using that beach, by the way, on a personal note. But
That's an old picture. 4513 has been torn down. It's in the middle of construction now, 2 new townhouses.
maybe the new owners will try to restrict us. Who knows? It actually happened on a beach to me. So, I mean, we had an incident with one of the homeowners much north of here, years and years ago, where he sent the police out to remove us from the beach. Didn't go very well. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sounding you were continuing your presentation.
No, that's really it in a nutshell. Just wanted to give that reality. And again, I think when it's always good to look at an actual survey of a property. Sometimes there are discrepancies between what the property appraiser has sometimes and an actual survey for the property. But I do think this is a good tool, and just showing, again, the purpose was to show how those property lines can vary.
Has any effort been made by the town manager to acquire the actual deeds to these properties and see whether they have restrictions on them?
Not that I'm aware of.
That was a recommendation we made to the town manager in December, if I'm not mistaken. Niev, correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm sorry. What was the question again? I didn't.
Didn't we ask the Marshal Abbey to look into the deeds, the actual legal?
Yes.
So we haven't gotten any information back from him on that.
No.
So basically, see, absent being able to see the deeds, property lines can go wherever they want to go. But if the deeds say there's other restrictions on those property owners, or would give us rights that otherwise would not be necessarily apparent from the lines that are drawn on the plat, we won't be able to make an informed decision as to whether we can enforce an ordinance or whether we can facilitate a problem. And that was my point earlier. I would try not to, encourage that until we knew for a fact whether or not the public was going to be served by us doing that. At the same time,
I'm looking at the draft minutes from the December 9, 2019 meeting. I see the discussion about the deed, but I don't think it was a formal recommendation by the board, again, based on the minutes.
it was mentioned in your January 8th meeting also. It doesn't really matter. Can we encourage our legal counsel to acquire those deeds? Or do we have some facility to acquire those deeds, or have someone look at them to give us a really good appreciation for what it is? Because to be honest, I was surprised when I read the Ocean Place Estate deeds. Ocean Place Estates are, I think, 9 to 10 properties that are just north of 45 South. And the entire community is bound by the same set of deeds. And at that time, the developer or whoever negotiated the deeds with the city specifically put a proviso in there allowing complete access for all residents right up to the dune, as opposed to the high tide watermark or any other restrictive boundary.
So I think we need to make a recommendation to this town staff to look up those deeds.
Steve, may I interject? That Ocean Place, they have 2 easements, right?
Let's see how
On
they,
each side?
well, yeah, the easements, yeah, they have 2 easements. One serves Highland Isles, which is the one which I actually was working for at the time I did this. I volunteered to help Highland Beach Isles, I believe it's called, that particular subdivision, which is across the street between Bel Air and Russell, to help them facilitate restoring their easement once we had a storm back in 2012 that wiped it out. Hurricane Sandy wiped out the actual stairs and the access point. So I did the research as a part of that. And then a property owner on the south side of that development, the last home, as a matter of fact, took the position that he had the right to build a concrete wall along that easement and extend the concrete wall down to the dunes. And that encouraged a big argument between ourselves and the homeowner, which resulted in the homeowner getting approval one way or the other regarding that and putting in his concrete wall. But in so doing, I found the deed to that property, and it clearly gave us all rights as citizens to use the beach right up to the dune. And it apparently is the same situation for all the homes in that particular development. And whether it goes beyond that for the north, I don't know. That's why I'm trying to look into it, because it's a project to get all the deeds.
Yeah.
I think. But it goes, Ms. Allen, it goes to your discussion about what we can enforce. Because if we're given access to it and we have what amounts to being constructive rights to walk on the beach, there's an argument to be made by the homeowners that we have a right, we have a responsibility to police the beach.
Now you're speaking about properties that have actual easements, right? The deeds for pardon?
I hate to use the word easement. The easements
Okay.
north and the south of Ocean Place Estates, and those are pathways from A1A to the beach. Those are actual easements. The deed restriction, which is in their particular deeds, is not characterized as an easement. It's characterized as a access agreement for the public or something. And again, I have the document in my office. I probably can pull it up on my system, but I don't think it's appropriate at this time to go grab it. But the deed itself to the property I was looking at and the one to the north of it clearly indicated that the developer intended for the public to use the beach to the help you. We have an audio problem now.
Yeah. Something, thank God.
Did you guys?
Stephen, I'm wondering if we're getting too far into the weeds in terms of the deeds, because each of these properties are going to be different in terms of where they're located. Anybody walking the beach is not going to be able to keep track. Oh, it's 10 feet up here, it's 5 feet back here, it's 3 feet. My suggestion is we're not worried about the dividing line at this point in time in terms of between the restricted property and the public property. To go forward in terms of getting that person on the beach cleaning along the beach. If he looks up and he sees that there's debris up there and it could be on the private property, he notifies code enforcement officer who checks, is that private or not, and then go forward. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, but Jack, you're inviting a situation where you're asking for a stick, and you're going to violate the homeowner, and then he's going to go get an attorney, or she's going to get an attorney, and then she's going to ask, well, where is my beach? Where is my access point really? And then if that homeowner sees 25 feet beyond the dune is their entitlement to their beach, and that's where the debris is located, they're going to say, well, the public caused that. And then there's an argument between the town and the individual. I'm just being realistic. Going back to Nia's point, my point originally, hire somebody from the town. No one's going to oppose them walking the beach and taking care of this. And forget about property lines. I don't care whether their property goes down to the water or in the water. I agree.
I agree.
Okay. I mean, I'm just trying, I'm sorry, if I'm not coming across properly. I just think that it's kind of productive for us to recommend to the commission that we have someone police the beach. I think it's better productive in the sense of going out for code enforcement violations. I think we're better off spending the money, effort, and time to simply have a maintenance person go out there and once every 3 or 4 days, walk the beach, clean, make sure the pails are organized, make sure any large debris is removed, because some things I found on the beach are enormous. Bales of things that came up from Bahamas after the storm, nets, all kinds of things that I had to remove personally. But the reality is that's what we need to get across to the commission. If we tell them, please hire your code enforcement officer to beat up the people who live on the beach, we're gonna have angry citizens and no effort, and probably not even a good result.
Yeah, but this person probably needs to be like, I don't think 3 or 4 days enough. It's like a full-time job, you know, that they're gonna be needed.
I mean, about what, $40,000 salary along with that?
I mean,
And if it's salary, that's the whole thing. If it's a full-time job.
it's Highland Beach. It's our beach is a
I know.
priority.
I'll go for it. You got my.
Hey, Steve, how about making a motion?
Well, first of all, you have control of the meeting right now. Go ahead.
I believe it's a recommendation. So is everybody, are we all agreeing that we want to have make this recommendation for this environmental resource employee to I guess walk the beaches and clean up debris? Does everybody agree with that?
Active maintenance. Yes. Excellent.
Okay. So we'd like to, this board would like to make a recommendation to the commission to have a full-time employee of the town be the environmental resource individual that is, so, you know, their job is to walk the beach, or drive it, however, to have access to the beach and clean up and, you know, so can we do that? We'd like to do that.
I second the recommendation. Linelda, can we make motions or recommendate? What are our authorities here?
You are an advisory board, and based on our code, you make recommendations to the commission.
Do we have to move the recommendation, or do we just make the recommendation?
Make a recommendation, and then the staff take it to the commission.
Do we have to vote on the recommendation, or is it simply a matter of?
It's a recommendation. It's a consensus.
And we all agreed already. So can we do that recommendation to what we just discussed, like to have this employee of the town, it's, you know, paid for by the town to be that environmental resource employee that cleans the beach, has access to the beach, cleans the beach, you know, what we just discussed. Can you word that, Steve?
Do we write this up, Linelda? Or do we just simply?
You can put it on the record. You can clean it up and put it on the record. We will capture it.
Yes. Steve, can you just word it properly for me?
No problem.
For our group?
We're all in agreement on this?
Yes.
All present? Okay. Go ahead.
No, but like, can you just like, so this is,
Oh,
so
okay,
is that,
okay.
yeah, just put it, like, word it properly for me.
The board has recommended that the commission seriously consider the prospect of hiring an environmental maintenance employee, whether that's someone who's currently involved in the maintenance department or has to be hired separately for this function, who will dedicate a significant portion of time each week to ensuring that the beach is properly policed for garbage and debris, and effectively keep an eye on what amounts to being the condition of the properties that are associated with the beach. Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Second the motion, second the recommendation.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, we're all in favor. So please put that recommendation in, Linelda.
Thank you.
I do much better than Linelda in write. I can type much better than dictate.
You're more than welcome to type it and send it to me.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's, I guess moving on, I think we're good with this, the beach cleanup for now, because there's so much that needs to be done, but that's a good recommendation. Is there, let me just ask then, is there anything else that anybody wanted to add to this topic, the beach cleanup and maintenance, before we move on to the next item?
I still want the commission to consider putting Diane's buckets and bucket trees along the entrances to the beach so the citizens can actively participate in this project, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Is that there as a recommendation, ma'am?
I think that's a good recommendation as well. Is everyone, how does everyone else feel about that? So that citizens can get involved. Any okay with that? Okay, so we'd like to make.
Formalize that. Do we need to formalize that into a recommendation that you'll put down on the record?
Yes, please.
Based upon Ms. Matherman's recommendation that we encourage the same type of citizen participation that is currently underway in Boca Raton, we ask the commission to provide funding and support for placing a bucket tree at the main entrances to the beach easements that are currently enjoyed by the citizens in Highland Beach, and place appropriate signage asking them to collect whatever loose debris they see in their travels along the beach and deposit it in the receptacles that are associated with their easements. Getting better at this, Linelda.
Yes, you are.
I never dictate, I really don't, but go ahead.
No, I love the way that you put things that, into words, because that's the hardest part for me. It's like I have all this in my head, I just trip over my words. But
That's okay. I get paid to do it. All right. As Jack pointed out, you're a free legal counsel. Go ahead.
But where would be that bucket tree be placed? Because we have no Boca and Delray, they have a public access. So where would that tree be placed?
Put on the easement.
The beach access points. If we'll have to ask the individual hold those rights.
Because the beach access places are private property, so we need the permission from the owners.
Correct.
So we'll need to get that. It doesn't hurt to ask.
It's required to ask, Nev.
Yeah.
It's not about it wouldn't hurt. It is required, and I can tell you that if that topic comes up in our homeowner association meeting and say, oh, the city of Highland Beach wants to put a bucket tree on our property, I can tell you right now that we would not get enough votes for that. So
really? Opposed to that? I thought that people would want to have their beach cleaned up.
Yeah, but having a bucket tree in front of your house is a whole different ballgame.
I don't think it'd be in front of the house, if you don't mind me saying so.
On your beach access, sorry.
It doesn't look as bad as it sounds. I mean, I'm not sure what I haven't looked at Boca's.
Here are two different accesses. One, the personal exit from each building, and then the accesses where people from the other side go and get to the beach. These kind of semi public gates that people can go to the beach. So I think that needs to be maybe a little bit more defined where that could happen. So we can not really compare us to a city with a public beach where this is an easy thing to do. So
well, maybe citizens need to, I don't know if compromise or be educated on why this is needed, because people want their beaches clean, but they don't want to, provide, the ability, the access to do it. It's just kind of like, how do we accomplish anything? you want your beach clean, but nobody wants to. It's silly.
Let me help you out for 1 second. First, we have to get approval from the commission and money and figure out what the cost is going to be associated with building a bucket tree or buying a bucket tree and the buckets that go along with it. Once we have that, we can send letters out to the individual communities that have public access points along their property from other communities. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you're in Bellito, is that correct? You live in the Bellito community?
Bel Air Drive by 45 Ocean.
Okay, so basically your access point is next to 45 South?
It's that Ocean Place that you were talking about and 45 Ocean is there.
Okay, that would be a situation where there's a pathway through their property and at the base of the stairs, and at the base of the stairs is an access point to the beach. That's where the theoretical bucket tree would be. And to the rear of their property, between 45 South and Ocean Place Estates, we have a pathway to go to, they have a pathway that goes, that's where the bucket tree would be. But before we can do anything, we have to find and will approve funding for it. And we have recommendations. So we have to investigate, we'll have the town manager's office, find out what the cost associated with this bucket and how many we need. So I suppose the recommendation is first find out how many we need, what the overall cost will be, and then offer it to the community and see whether they support it.
Yeah, maybe provide a little bit of education on the benefits of having that, as opposed to how you might not like the way it looks, like versus one versus the other.
I know that Diane Mathman would love to join into this conversation. Unfortunately, I'm going to speak for you. It's not going to look that bad. And it's something which we all should participate in because we make it a community organization situation. We don't have the ability to have a team of individuals out there. So this would be an added supplement to the cleanup operations and give us an opportunity to facilitate.
Yeah, it's like community participation. Like we all need to come together if we want to clean our beaches and have, beautiful beaches that that our town is named for.
For the people in the public who are watching us today will actually perhaps jump into a discussion and tell us what they think about it. But ultimately, it's a situation where the commission has to give us to even go beyond the point of discussing it and say that they're willing to fund it.
We make that recommendation then?
Mm-hmm. We did.
Linnell, did you get that?
Yes, but just for clarity of the record, we do have an item on the agenda, discussion on placing buckets on the beach for trash cleanup, but you all just discussed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you kind of combine item with item C.
Correct.
So, okay, just for clarity of the record and the public that may be listening or watching, those two items C and E were combined. You just discussed. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Member Matt was gonna, discuss it, but she's unable to participate.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so you have that recommendation now, Linelda?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. So
Ingrid and I.
Okay. Yes. So is there anything else under this beach cleanup and maintenance that anyone would like to discuss before we move on to the next topic? Okay. Item 9D, discussion on preserving dunes and ocean-front properties. I just wanted to open that discussion up because I guess this goes with everything that we're talking about, like with the what they had talked about in those meetings with the commission meetings, as far as the beach renourishment, the dune restoration. I think I just wanted to just bring it up and talk about it a little bit. Jack, if you want to participate in this, and
Sure, you want to go first? You want to go, and then I'll go.
I did ask Dan Belante. He had given us a presentation on dune restoration a while back, and he was unable to meet with us, but he did send me an email. I asked him to join, and he said that he had a previous appointment scheduled, so he wouldn't be able to join, but that he had suggested, hold on, let me see what he said here. He said, I would be glad to meet you or others on a dune site sometime. There are several properties in Highland Beach that we have recently restored. I think it would be an easier way to show the importance of what needs to be done, how it can be done, and how the town can encourage it to be done. So that was his email to me. But anyways, I'm sorry, Jack, go ahead.
Okay, I really, dune restoration is probably one of the lowest cost items in terms of trying to preserve our beaches and protect our homes. I think what we first need to do is get some kind of a status quo of where do we stand on the dunes. So I have two thoughts in mind, and I'm throwing out. One, we could do a self-analysis and send out a questionnaire to all the homeowners / condominium associations along the ocean with a self-assessment in terms of what does their dunes look like? What do they think it does? What has happened over the years? In terms of, are they willing to spend about X amount of money to put in dune restoration? And we can get some numbers, rule of thumb from Dan maybe. And that's one approach. The other approach is that the town itself hires somebody, possibly Dan, to walk the 3.2 miles with a map and do kind of assessment of the dunes. I can't see that being more than a one-day thing in a sense to do that, or possibly doing both. So that's what comes to mind. And then based on those results, go into those homeowners and associations and talk with them seriously, or have a kind of a common meeting over at the library, a virtual meeting rather, about doing vegetation on their properties. I think Dan could be a big resource on this, and I'm sure it could be very good for him and self-serving for him in terms of work as well. So that's kind of my thoughts on dune preservation, protection, preservation.
Yeah, it's with the dunes. I think it is important. It's the only thing is back to each individual property owner being responsible for for paying for that. And it's just hard to encourage people to if they're just not willing, or don't see the importance of it. That's the obstacle I see. But yeah,
I would like to say something about that, please.
Yes.
Yep. Dan is my neighbor, so I can see from my balcony exactly what he did to his property, beach and dunes, and how it works. And I suggested that some years ago, before we start our concrete restoration, and our homeowner association was quite open to invest. And I think it would have been for us around $25,000 to do that, what Dan suggested. So, and as I said before, I mentioned that in one of the last meetings, and I was immediately approached by Mr. Schumacher elect at that time, and he got together with Dan, and he was educated by Dan in full length about what it means to restore the dunes. So we have already somebody in the committee that is very interested to go further with that idea. And I think it would be a great idea if each property on the beach would get a kind of an information about how does their beach look and how could it be done or do better? What could they do so that, because you need some kind of an information to go to a homeowner association meeting and say, our beach has the wrong species growing there, and we destroy our beaches over time if we don't change what is on our beaches. I think that is a perfect way to argue. And as I said, Mr. Shoemaker is already on our side. At the moment, I think they have a lot to do with the fire department of Delray Beach. So they might be not really happy to do it right now, but I know it is on his list, and he knows, he has a personal contact to Dan Belante.
Okay. So,
Okay.
so it's really, what it comes down to, I guess, is the, we have to provide information
Yes.
to the homeowners, to the individual
Yes.
homeowners.
Yes.
Question for Ingrid, town planner.
Yes.
Ingrid, are you available to send out a questionnaire to the homeowners condominium associations along the ocean about the dunes?
Well, I'd have to speak to the town manager about that. I don't know if that would be something that whether it's, I don't know if the town would bring a consultant on board. I mean, I don't know.
No, I'm just talking a short questionnaire about the dunes. What do they think? Are they willing to spend money on it, et cetera, et cetera. I think in terms of, I think trying to hire a Dan Belante for one day may be the cheapest alternative, and I would expect that that's way under the limits for you having to go out for competitive bidding for a 1 or 2 day assignment for a guy like him.
Sure. I mean, I could talk to the town manager about it and see if that's something I could accomplish.
Okay, so could we?
I could talk to the town manager and report back to the board on that.
Okay. Regarding the questionnaire, yeah, that'd be, if you could please, we'd like to make, it's okay with everyone, we'd like to make the recommendation to the staff, Ingrid, to see if that is feasible.
Second the motion. Second the recommendation.
Okay. So you have that and you'll do that for us, Ingrid?
Sure, I could do that. Mr. Halpern, do you want to elaborate what other questions you would want on that survey? You had mentioned, you know, what their thoughts are on the current status of their dune. Anything else you'd want to add on there?
Possibly the history as they know it of their dunes. Has it been receding? Has it been accreting? Are they willing to spend some funds to ensure the stability of their dunes? And maybe you could, you know, even put some numbers down there, you know, 0 to 5, 5 to 10, I don't know, 10 to 15. I'm not sure. Perhaps if you talk to Dan Belante, he can give you some rule of thumb numbers that could be used.
Right, and of course, depending on the size of the property, obviously, you know, costs would differ.
Right, and I have his contact information, his telephone number and email if you needed it.
If you can email the contact information to me, that would be great.
Okay, I'll do that. And then I also feel though that like how that providing this information to the property owners, that they need to be provided information on the importance of dune restoration. Like it's hard. I don't know how we could do it, but like this packet that that it was a PowerPoint presentation that Dan had a lot of pictures, you know, of before and after dune restoration. How do we? Is there any way to get that to the homeowners as well? Maybe even with this survey that you're doing, like maybe provide them the importance of this type of project. Like, is there something, maybe we could do that? What do you guys think? What does everyone think about that? Because I think if we just provide a survey that's, asking them, maybe they haven't even ever thought about it. But if they see the importance of it, maybe it will also have, make them think more about why it's important, and actually maybe go and look at their, at their beachfront property out, look outside and see, like, hey, maybe it is looking a little sparse out there. I mean, what does anybody think what does anybody think about providing information to the homeowners, like, beside?
I think it's a good point. I would maybe look and see if we can thin out the packet a little bit, so it's not too thick.
Thick, but it's thick. But maybe
But particularly showing the before and after at the condominium here in Highland Beach, I think is an excellent one.
okay, so can we make some type of recommendation as well in addition to this, to have this information provided to the beachfront property homeowner?
Basically educating them. You want to add, make an educational project out of it?
Yeah, I think that people need to be educated, because I didn't really know that much about this dune restoration until Dan came to our and presented his information.
If I can interject, you could go ahead and put that PowerPoint on the your webpage, which is on the town's website, and that way people can have access to it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, is it okay that it's, it's presentation and it's prepared by the Green Coast Consulting? Is that, do we have to get permission to put it up, or?
Well, you said this was already presented to the board at a previous board meeting?
Oh, yes, it was. Yes.
And in a
Okay,
town hall. And in a town hall.
Well, then
Yes.
that's public record.
Oh, okay, okay.
Mr. Vellante spoke on a town hall meeting.
So we could probably get the same I don't have the actual PowerPoint, but we could probably get that from him. But again, I have information.
I could discuss that with the town clerk about putting it on, being that it's a public record.
Okay.
Sort out that.
Okay, so recommendation for you to provide this information on the research to see if we're able to, about providing this information on the website. That would be great. And then we could refer maybe with that survey.
Exactly. You give them the website so they can look at the PowerPoint.
Right.
Have something with substance to look at, right?
Great idea, Navaj. Can I make another recommendation to the commission? That recommend to the commission that they consider hiring Don Valente to do a survey of the dunes in Highland Beach.
We as a board,
Did not understand you.
Can you understand me? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, but I don't think Jack's system is not working or something. Jack, can you hear me? Interesting. I'm hearing a kind of go through the system. I don't know why. Elda?
I hear that too. I don't know what it is.
Maybe it could be a Zoom. Had that before. It's been a loaded system at this point. Yeah, if I'm understanding you correctly, you want to have, well, I'm sorry, to appoint somebody or recommend to them that they basically hire an engineer, the city hire an engineer. Is that your idea, Jack?
Negative, not an engineer, Don Valente.
Dan Valente.
Don Valente, not an engineer.
What is he?
He's with Dan Valente, Green Coast Consulting. He's a consultant.
But isn't he by background an engineer though?
No, he's in dune restoration is his background. Don't need an engineer for this.
Like it's plant, it's vegetation that his background's more like a kind of like a you know, like vegetate, horticulture or something, kind of, but for specifically for the sand dunes. Like it's because it's plants. What he's dealing with is growing plants and planting the right species, native species.
Go ahead.
So can we go ahead and I guess is everyone okay with that recommendation that Jack would like to?
Let me give some more clarification. Steve, I have 3 degrees in geotechnical engineering. We're not going to be evaluating the stability of the dunes or anything like that, the structural stability. We're just looking as to what dunes exist, what are there, and what can we do to preserve what's there, i.e. through plantings. No structural type things, because if we start getting into structural things and hiring engineers, forget about the budgets. Forget about it.
You're not available for free, Jack?
After my court
time here.
After my court time.
Okay. All right. So he's going to recommend horticultural solutions to preserving the dunes.
Well,
yes, sir.
Specifically wants to recommend Dan Vellante from Green Coast Consulting to do.
Do we know how much? Do we know how much Mr. Vellante charges for these services?
I believe he had provided an idea, yes, of his rates or what it's charged. I have numbers here, but I would have to talk to, you know, we'd have to hear from him again, because I don't remember. Like I have $2.50 a square foot, $3.50 a square foot, 8,000 square feet. These are just notes that I had taken at the time, but it's been so long that I'm not really sure exactly what the costs would be.
Niraj, but that's not to survey the beach. I would say we're talking about 1 day of his time.
That's probably for the actual restoration.
Survey. Right.
But what you're
I would leave it up to the town to negotiate with him and to do that and turn it over to the town.
Right.
Okay? That would be my suggestion.
I have a suggestion also in this. Nothing personal. I know I'm new to Mr. Vellante and his worth and experience in regards to this matter. But wouldn't we be well served to suggest that the town endorse him and submit the actual bill, if necessary, if there has to be one, to the individual property owners who have dunes that we need to restore, or they need to restore, or have them at least encouraged to seek his services to evaluate the condition of their dunes?
I'm not being clear. I'm not talking about him making recommendations. I'm just talking going down and saying, okay, 4505, yes, we could do vegetation there. 4302, forget about it. There's nothing there to do vegetation. 4101, oh, that has a sheet pile and wall. There is no dunes. That's all I'm talking about. That's it.
So you want him to walk the beach and just make general recommendations. I'm sorry, Ms. Braun. Go ahead. Can't hear you. No.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Now we can.
So Mr. Vellante is a retired landscape. You know, he had a company who did that, but he is in his retirement. So, but he's very interested to educate people about the invasive species on the beach, that if we would remove them, we would do a good deed for our beaches. So, and not what we learned back in the day is not every landscape company can do that. You need to have a certain education and a certain certificate to do work on the beach. This is kind of a legal thing that you can work on the beaches. So I am sure, knowing Mr. Vellante, he is more than happy to do that for maybe a small fee, and just you know, make an evaluation about our beaches in general and say that property needs it, that property has it, It is a short thing for him, but to the engineer and not engineer thing, he has the education to work on dunes. So that was my technical information. That is what we learned from him. several times.
I think it's a good idea also, though, that what Steve was saying is that for the town to, maybe perhaps endorse him and include his information in that, with that survey, and that educational information, and also provide them with a recommendation. Green Coast Consulting can help you with that, to get your property looked at and get an estimate, something like that. You know what I mean? Like, or to get an assessed, or I think providing his information is kind of like, okay, you're doing this, asking them what they think about their property. You're providing them the information to educate themselves on what dune restoration, and then you're providing a solution. Like, here is a resource. Like, here's somebody that can help you with it as well. At the same time, I think that wouldn't be a bad idea to include his information with all that. So it's like one whole, it's like a packet of,
Back in the day, the town was very hesitant to do that because Mr. Belante was still involved in a company who would do that for profit. So, and the town didn't really want to, and maybe the town clerk can confirm that, they were a little bit hesitant because that was his company and they didn't want to, and they always made sure there were several companies who would do the same. So I do not know if that changed, if he is maybe now full retired and not involved in the company anymore. I do not know. What I'm telling you is at least 5 years old. So things could have changed now.
I think if you just include it in the package that says, this is Mr. Volante's experience, you're welcome to engage him on your own if you so choose, and maybe give recommendations to companies that would effectively be able to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then they leave it to the homeowner. I know personally, when I give referrals to anyone, I always give several names.
Exactly. I think that is the point. Yeah.
And then we don't want to. I would definitely understand the town being very concerned and apprehensive about recommending one individual, because it would be an endorsement. It would almost be a suggestion. It could be all kinds of issues. And you're right. I completely understand the fact that would be a bad idea. But I think to Nia's point, having the homeowner alerted to the fact that this is a problem that they really want to deal with, and these are some of the possibilities locally you can go to facilitate that, can't hurt. But if the town doesn't want to go that far, that's fine too. As long as we point it out to the homeowner that you ought to consider repairing your dune or suffer the consequences, which, if we want to go back and look at some pictures from 2012, were significant. That's when the dunes in certain portions of the town were destroyed to the extent they actually had to add a seawall. I mean,
hurricane season, so not that like it takes time to do that type of dune restoration with plants, but it could help with hurricanes, lessen the damage.
No, I'm not talking about doing anything with Dan Belante other than an initial maybe 1 to 2 day survey to look at the dunes and determine these dunes would benefit by having plantings. These dunes would need structural work to such that we can do plantings on them, or no, there's sheet pile cutoffs. There's no possible way of doing any plantings here. That's all I'm talking about. No further information in terms of Dan Belante. What happens after that survey? We see what the results are. We see if a questionnaire, what kind of results we get from the owners in the education process. And then we go from there as to what the next steps are. But
I'll go along with that. You go okay with that, Nia?
Yes. So let's make it, the recommendation is to have do a survey of Highland Beach beachfront properties, correct?
A 1 to 2 day survey. I'm trying to spin it in. This is nothing that's going to be go out and hire a consulting engineer for the next 3 months.
No.
It's a 1 to 2 day survey. I'm giving it an extra day.
Okay.
I think he looks for 3 minutes at each property, takes a picture for some proof, and that's it. It's not a big deal for him. He knows immediately what is wrong and what is right.
So can we do that, Linelda or Ingrid?
Lost
Have
them.
that. Oh, Ingrid or? I can't see. I have it on just one.
We can make that recommendation.
You can make
Okay.
the recommendation.
Yes, we'd like to make that recommendation to have Dan Volante do a survey, just a 1 to 2 day survey of the beachfront properties in Highland Beach, to see what type of dune restoration, if needed.
Let me add, to see if properties fall into one of three categories. One, they're eligible for dune restoration by plantings. Two, that I'm using the word structural changes would have to be made for dune restoration. Or three, not suitable for structural rehabilitation or vegetation.
That's good. Perfect.
We're making that recommendation for that to happen. For Dan.
Just be mindful, there might be some regulations about, bringing on consultants. They typically, if you trigger a certain amount of money, it has to go out for bid. So just be mindful of that.
This is de minimis, Ingrid.
Okay,
It's de minimis. It's below the levels. I don't remember the
Okay.
exact number, but it's way below the levels for sole source
okay.
in Florida.
Okay. All right. So does anybody else have anything to add to the or we? Okay, and we had already discussed the bucket, so we moved on. So now, okay, that concludes that. Announcements. Moving on to announcements, item 10. There's the virtual town commission special meeting on July 2nd, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. Town hall will be closed July 3rd, 2020 in observance of Independence Day. Virtual town commission meeting July 7th, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. There's a virtual planning board meeting July 9th, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. Financial advisory board meeting July 9th, 2020 at 2 p.m. There's a code enforcement board meeting July 14th, 2020 at 2 p.m. Virtual town commission special meeting on July 21st, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. There being no further business to come before the board.
Before you say, I just wanted to request that we set a meeting for the next one. We have a lot of stuff on the plate, and it would not be helpful if we wait months to have another meeting. I think we would have another meeting within a month for follow-up. That's my suggestion.
Okay. All right. And Steve
I'll
is
second
the
that
chair
motion.
now. That Steve is the chairperson, so he'll be requesting meetings moving forward. So there being no further business to come before the board, the meeting is adjourned at 11:50 a.m.
Stay healthy, everybody. Be well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Take care.